Hi, welcome to On the Record, where we'll be looking at the Playbook for Tapping India. Today we will look at if you are a founder based in India and if you are planning to either incorporate your headquarters outside India or you are planning to shift your headquarters outside India, which geography is right for you. Before you decide on a specific geography, you should answer some of these questions. So first and foremost that you should look at is where the customer base is gonna be, right? So depending on where your potential customers would be, it could be restricted to a specific geography, it could be global, or it could be across a few different geographies and stuff. So depending on that, you should decide what would be an ideal location to have your HQ. And when I say about customers, I don't say just for the next 6 to 12 months, it could be say 3 to 5 years or 10 years down the line. The second question that you should answer is what kind of brand you are trying to build. Are you trying to build an American brand or a British brand or an Indian brand or a Middle Eastern brand? Because that also how you want your company to be perceived by your customers, not just your customers, but public at large as you grow, investors, other stakeholders, everything. So that would also help you to identify what would be a good geography for me. The third thing that you should also look at is because any startup would need a decent amount of capital. So where is your confidence level of tapping the investor base? Do you feel more comfortable reaching out to Indian investors and get the money? Or you have confidence of reaching out to any other specific geography like America, UK, or any other geography? So that could also help. Why? Because majority of the investments done by investors of a specific geography, they actually prefer you to be locally headquartered. So if there is an American investor, they would prefer you to be headquartered in US. If it is Indian investors, majority of them would want you to be in India. So that would also decide where your HQ should be. The next thing is you should also evaluate about the flipping cost to a new geography. So for example, if you are already incorporated in India and if you are trying to flip, what is the cost of flipping? That would decide whether it is advisable to take this exercise today or you want to defer it, because as the company grows and it becomes bigger, flipping costs are really high and many times it could actually run into few $100,000 to few $1 million depending on the shape and size of the company. So that is also an important factor to decide the flipping time and the geography. Some of the popular locations that we hear for startup, certainly US is the number one, but then there are UK and Europe is also coming out as strong destinations. If you are into Web3, then Singapore, Middle East, Dubai and all is coming out as new destinations. So you should also look at some of these destinations where your industry is thriving better, because then you would have an access to a much larger and a better ecosystem, which also helps you to build the company faster. So these are few questions that you should answer before deciding which is the actual geography that you should be headquartering in. Another important aspect that you should tick mark before deciding the geography is the kind of exit options that is available. We know that a lot of startups fail and you just cannot be building it you will never fail. So it is always good to evaluate what are the exit options available. And by exit, I don't mean like even if startups are successful, you need an exit. Exit could be via mergers, acquisitions, going IPO or through liquidation. These are the major four routes that people look at when exiting a startup. So you should look at what is the ecosystem, the timelines, the complexities that is involved in exit. Answering all these questions will help you to identify which is the right geography that you should be doing it. Now, once you have identified the location, then you should start looking at some other aspects. Now, every geography has different kinds of company structure that they offer. For example, India offers you private limited, LLPs and stuff. US offers you C Corp, LLC, LLP, even S Corp. There are multiple kinds of entities that is available in different geography. So, how do you decide what is the right company structure for me? One, the company structure that you finalize should be able to grow. So right from a startup till at least IPO, because that's how the founders plan, right? Because as I mentioned earlier, if there is always a huge flipping cost and a wrong structure is more like a bug, which is gonna prove more and more costly the later you fix it, right? So if you don't have the right structure, tomorrow as you grow, then you may have to change the structure. So it is good to evaluate which structure supports growth. At least till IPO, if you can take it, that would be a good consideration. The next, then you should also look at do you want to issue stock options or not. Stock option is an integral part of a startup's journey. It helps you to attract and retain the best of the talent and help them value creation through stock options. So if you have stock options in your journey, then the structure should also be supporting issuing of stock options. For example, an LLP in India does not have a stock option, so that way you should do it. Then are you planning to raise money or not? You may be choosing a bootstrap journey or raising money. That also defines which structure supports investors, give you much more flexible terms, much more flexible variety of equity instruments that you are giving. Those kind of things would also help you to identify what is the right structure that you should be looking at. Then you should also look at some of the compliance landscape of that particular geography. What is the compliances associated with various structure types? So for example, a C Corp may have a very different way of compliance journey, whereas compared to LLC, the taxation could be different. There could be pass-through taxes, there could be something else associated. So you should evaluate the compliance landscape of the resultant structure. You should also look at what is the popular in that particular geography, like what majority of the other startups in your industry or in your domain are using it. Are they using a C Corp? Are they using an LLC or an S Corp? For example, in US, where you should headquarter, right? Majority of the companies are in Silicon Valley, but then they get registered in Delaware. So what is that geography? All these questions will help you to identify which is the right geo and what is the right structure that you should be looking at. One different question that I would also want you to answer is if the founders plan to relocate to that particular geography as the company grows. And why do I say that? Because generally as company grows, founders are expected to be based out of headquarters, and there has been ample examples of people moving from India to US and even from different parts of the world to US as the company grew up. That is because as you grow, you also need access to a lot of larger capital, you need more visibility, you need to have a bigger presence in that specific geo. You cannot be operating a remote setup from a distance. And you need to be among the core employees sitting day in, day out, brainstorming, helping to see how to grow the company. So this is an important question, may not be today, but do you have a plan or a roadmap in mind? Whether if the founders, at least one or two, whichever founders plan to relocate to the headquarter geography. So based on this, you would be able to identify which is the right geography and then what is that right structure that you should be going ahead to form your international HQ. So once you have identified what is the geography and what is the right structure for your startup, you should go ahead and execute it. So find a good partner who can help you to incorporate the HQ. After incorporating, you should open the bank account. You might have to take various business licenses and stuff to be operational there or to be operating from there. You should also carve out the ESOP or advisor pool. You should execute founders agreement so that any dispute or anything happens between the founders, everything is protected. And then since you are from India, you would also have a majority of FEMA compliances to be dealt with. So because you have been doing an overseas investment, there are FEMA guidelines associated. So you should go ahead and close on those FEMA guidelines as well. Before we wrap, I would one more time like to highlight the importance of exit options here. So as I mentioned, you can get an exit either through a merger, acquisition, IPO or a liquidation. So you should evaluate those things in detail, and while evaluating, you should look at these things like what is the timeline to execute these things, how much is the taxes that you end up paying either on the gains or the losses, and how you bring that money, how repatriable that money is to bring it back to the country. In case if you have not moved to the HQ geo and if you are still in India, then you have to look at what are the double tax treaties applicable, how you will bring that money, and what are the compliances in India that you have to complete so that the whole transaction can be closed. That's it. I hope this video was helpful. This should help you to identify your next target geo along with the company structure. Best of luck for your new startup, and thank you so much. Take care.